Hello everybody, my name is Jacqueline. Welcome to another episode of IFPAS Hard Talk, a series where we interview the movers and shakers of the financial planning industry. For the first time, we are having a non-practitioner to share his perspective on adapting to change, the future of financial advisory. Welcome Nick Hakes, Director of Market Development, Asia, Kaplan Professional Australia. Hi Nick.
Jacqueline, pleasure to be here.
Share with us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, just briefly, proud Kiwi, originally from New Zealand, spent many years working in financial advice in Australia, and now proud to call Singapore home. Professionally, spent 10 years working for one of the oldest wealth management companies in Australia, across practice management, asset management, life insurance. Then nearly a decade in a professional advisor representative body, very similar to IFPAS. For 75 years it evolved out of an alleyway and now represented across a broad section of the financial planning industry. And then more recently, Kaplan Professional Australia, and that's what's led me here to IFPAS and here to be talking with you today.
Wow, excellent. I think we'll be looking forward to your wealth of experience, that you are as good as a financial practitioner, that you are having a more objective point of view. Maybe for the first time, you'd like to share with us what is the financial planning sector in Australia like? I understand that it is completely fee-based. How did this come about?
It is true that there is a fee-based legislation was introduced in 2013 called the Future of Financial Advice Reforms, and they banned commissions on investment products. Importantly, it didn't relate and excluded life insurance products, but that's not all it did. It also put a ban on soft dollar payments, volume-based payments, and two very positive things for the professionalisation of our industry was the obligation of an advisor to act in the best interest of a client, and importantly, it enshrined the term financial planner and financial advisor into legislation. And so for the first time, when we use this term financial advisor, we actually, through the eyes of the law, we were someone. And so the fees, I understand people are curious about it. How does it work in practice? But I think, where did it come from? The 2013 legislation was a direct result of some of the financial losses that people had within the GFC. But financial advisors were actually starting to implement different fee models earlier, like 10, 15 years before them. And so the industry-led trend came, a long time before actually the legislation arrived. And that's an important thing. And industry-led practitioners were actually starting to implement these different types of models. And the last thing to sort of important to frame up in the context of the fee discussion is that often people miss the other part of the equation, which is the value conversation. And so there needs to be value created. If there's to be some sort of fee or commission. And so these pricing models, whether it's fees, subscription, commissions, these are just the mechanism in which advisors get paid. I think far more emphasis actually needs to be put on what value we create for our clients. And so that's often sometimes lost in the discussion around fees.
I really agree with you on that, on the value that we need to create for our clients, So I think, where we can bring about a fee base, and even though I think a lot is about what we call value creation, so that they can continue to work on not just the numbers, but more on what we can do for them.
Yeah, and so if there's commission on life insurance products, or there's some different model, that's just the way in which the mechanism works after we actually have the client conversation. And so I think there's no one way to do it.
So in your perspective, is there a huge difference in client experience between Australia and Singapore?
Good question. That is one point of difference. I think where it's come from, though, is these decades worth of regulatory reform. There's lots of advice practices that have had to adapt and respond. And so I think there's more acceleration towards this concept of values-based advice or goals-based advice. And here in Singapore, we're seeing lots of great examples of people starting to think about how do we stage the client experience, and how do we bring them through the journey. But there is a point of difference there. And from my perspective, what I've seen is if we can get really good at knowing who our client is and really understanding the things that they want, then we can use things like technology and the relationship that we have with them to get them to buy in, to feel empowered with the conversations that they're having with their advisor. I can give you a great example about client experience. It was about 7 years ago. I was on a research trip to the US with a group of advisors.
Right.
And when we're coming back, we had this conversation at 29,000 feet. And this advisor solely deals with clients who are retired. And he was talking about how potentially he could use augmented reality and AI to help retirees truly vision what their retirement might look like. And this was a fantastic concept. And you fast forward to today, the last year or two in Singapore, there's been a huge investment in AI to help drive the client experience. Another example, you think about the way that millennials, Gen X, how they engage digitally with financial decisions. That's very different to the retiree couple. And so financial advice businesses should think about, well, who is their ideal client? And then how can they use technology and build a client experience on top to deliver really good client outcomes?
Yeah, I would think that the millennials will use technology very different. They're more familiar, right, with technology versus the retirees.
Yeah.
Good to know that I think everybody is going into that technology phase. I think it's to embrace them all together.
Yeah, that's right. It's about incorporating it into how we go about things, rather than trying to run away from it.
Totally agree. Nick, you have been in Singapore for some time now. And before that, I understand you travel to many different places and you have observed how financial planning is practiced. How would you rate the Singaporean practitioner versus the rest of the world now that we are all almost a global citizen?
It shouldn't be a competition, Jacqueline.
A friendly one.
It could be a friendly rivalry. Let's call it a friendly rivalry. Different markets are running their own race. And so there's a lot to learn from us by going and seeing how financial advice is delivered in different country markets. And fortunate enough to see how that operates. And my takeaway is that we are actually trying to solve common challenges. Financial advisors everywhere. That is, we want to grow the demand for our advice, grow the demand for our services. We want to feel confident and respected. We would like to operate with a very clear vision for the future and what success looks like. And so the context of how different countries and advisors are solving that, it could be different. However, actually the challenge is the same. And so we should try to get outside of our bubble. It can be easy to fall into the trap of home country bias.
Home country bias, can you talk a bit on that?
Yes, so if we are in Singapore or in Malaysia or in Australia, we just think that way of doing things is the only way.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But that bias could actually exist within whole companies or agencies. And so I think there's a lot to be learned to step outside of our bubble, expose ourselves to different ways of doing things. And it might not be the right way for us, but maybe there's something that we can translate and put it into our company or to our agency. If you look at the financial transformation roadmap of the MAS, rightly, they identify that we need to deepen the skills and competency of the entire professional advisory service.
Right.
And so Singapore is well placed to be the wealth management hub for the region.
That's good news.
Well, it already is. And so how do we grow that? How do we accelerate it? And so part of it, I think, is to understand some of the cross-border transactions and cross-border strategies. You're right. We are all global citizens. And so when it comes to financial advice, it's natural that people will have assets and income in different...
All over the places, right? Different places.
And so there's a real opportunity there, I think, as advisors to say, well, if we can deepen our skills and knowledge, not just in how that might work on a technical financial planning basis, but then what about the delivery of advice? How do we look to different ways of doing things, different industries that challenge the status quo and might make us innovate, adapt, get better at what we do, and ultimately deliver better client experiences.
Yeah, like how you said that we should all be investing in ourselves, and how we can really continue to attract the best and the brightest to continue to live up the image and, of course, the reputation of our financial services. Yeah, that's so important because we are dealing with a lot of wealth in Asia here, and of course a lot more in Singapore as well. So do you think InsurTech will catch up a big way in Singapore? A day where the Singaporean consumer would want to bypass a financial practitioner and just purchase their financial planning needs online? Would this ever happen?
Well, I should ask you that question. We should swap.
I would say a no. Unless it's a low transaction cost, then yes, you can easily buy it online, right? But I think for high cost, you need someone to really take care of it for you. Do you think so?
But it's already here, right?
Oh yes, it's here. Unless you really don't enjoy a conversation with people, you don't like to meet people, but you still need to entrust someone to take care of things for you.
Yeah, and so do you come across clients who have already done some degree of evaluating and researching online before they come and see you?
Yes, it does happen. Yeah, you're right. So they will have some information, that they will have really bring along with them.
Yeah.
But they really still want to seek a professional point of view from us, as financial practitioners.
So I think this is the key point, is that lots of advisors have a real anxiety about, well, how is InsurTech or FinTech or Advice Tech or Robo-Advice or whatever label we want to put on it? I think where the anxiety and the deeper question in this, which is a very real one, is that it feels as if it threatens our identity. And so that should be our role, talking to clients. And if we have, whether it's InsurTech or Robo-Advice, well, how do we coexist? Because it is already here. The first Robo-Advice offering was developed in 2008. So, it's already been here for 15 years or so.
2008, is it?
Yeah, the first one, once again, as a result, an innovation that came out of the GFC. And the prevalence of the direct-to-consumer model has increased. And I think that's what people are concerned about, is the acceleration of direct-to-consumer. However, as you rightly pointed out, people at the end of the day want to then have a face-to-face conversation. Yes. Financial planning is a humanistic endeavour. We are dealing with people's financial and health, family situations. I can't think of another profession that actually has the insight into both financial and health scenarios of a whole family. So it's a really privileged position that we have as financial advisors. And where the technology comes in is that we should actually be moving up the complexity scale, solving more complex problems for clients because we add more value. It is a higher transaction cost for the people involved, higher degrees of emotional engagement. So maybe we let things like AI solve the simple problems and we solve more complex problems. And what we do know from research and from seeing this with advisors adapting it is that if people have a simple transaction, that usually that opens an awareness to bigger financial decisions. So if we want to grow the demand for financial advice, actually having people transact, with some sort of financial decision, and that we can then say, well, when it comes to the more complex questions that you've got, we're here to help. There's lots of good examples of financial advisor businesses operating two models under the one umbrella. And one is a very low touch, high tech, scalable model. And the other one is more bespoke, it's more self-directed, it's more relationship driven. And if you were somebody looking at both advisor businesses, you might not know or realize that they're actually under the one corporate umbrella or agency umbrella. But what they're really, really good at is actually articulating what they do for the client. And the way in which they then engage the client is what people want. So if it's a very simple solution or a simple product, it's easy. There shouldn't be any friction in it. But if it's something that's more complex, then we should take more time. There's more trade-offs. There's not a right or wrong. And so for the opportunity for the financial advisor is actually to look at what technology they do need and then build their practice around it that services the needs of those client segments.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. That we should all coexist with technology, and technology help us to service our client better, faster. Yeah, and sometimes the simple tasks we can leave it to technology to do it.
Yeah, they're better at the
the
low value.
One,
exactly.
Yes, but I also like how you always enforce on the value proposition that we should all be giving to our clients. Yeah, especially to tackle the emotional aspect of it. I think that part is really important to take care of, not just the costing of, problems that could occur. Okay, but also to focus on the confusion. Okay, and also I think last but not least is more on the complication that could arise if it's not well done, the planning is not well done, and it's not as easy as just buying something off the shelf, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, good. We're on the same page on that.
Yeah.
The IFPAS High Net Worth Certification is a collaboration with Kaplan Professional Australia and IFPAS. Yourself, Nick, and Alan Lim are the key players in the program. Tell us, how will the High Net Worth Certification course elevate the Singapore financial practitioner?
Importantly, Jacqueline, it was an international team effort. We formed the IFPAS High Net Worth Committee, representative of the advisor voice across industry. And we collaborated with practitioners in Singapore, in Sydney, Hong Kong, Dubai. And we have the first program accredited within the IBF skills framework for level 2 and level 3. Designed and developed in Singapore, best of both worlds, blend of local and international best practice. And importantly, how does it elevate the Singapore financial advisor? For the first time in a program, we incorporate behavioural finance, tax, cross-border strategies, the different personal and trust structures that high net worth clients have. And then how do we bring this to life? It's through the development of their own marketing and business plan. And so how do we elevate it? Actually, it's not about the success of the certification, it's the success of the advisor, which is most important. And how do we elevate our profession is growing the demand for what we do.
Wow, I really like it. It seems to encompass everything that we are doing in the financial planning platform. Really like it. Is it something like a mini MBA for us?
People have described it like that. It does incorporate, importantly, some practice management, because we need to think about how we grow demand. And so incorporating some business strategy and some of the thinking from MBA programs, it's a roadmap to success.
I really like how it's locally made, for Singapore landscape as well, for the FC financial practitioner. It's so important and to be relevant in that space altogether. So the IFPAS Net Worth certification, as the name suggests, is this program only for practitioners who are planning to specialize in the high net worth space, or can a practitioner who wants to serve the mass market also benefit from the course?
The client scenarios and examples, case studies reference high net worth individuals and families, but deepening skills, technical knowledge, and financial planning strategies for those types of clients, they can be adapted to other client segments. Quite often, we see lots of client scenarios, I'm sure you see this, where people are asset rich and cash flow poor.
Yes, very much, yeah.
They think about how do we transfer wealth from one generation to the next. And so peer learning forms a really important part of the program. And so how do we accelerate the expertise of all practitioners? Expose yourself to different client scenarios. Rub shoulders with people who have done this before. And so who should consider it? Are people who aspire to be successful in financial advice. Someone just recently reminded me that we're closer to 2050 than we are 1990. And so if we're sitting here as financial advisors thinking about the future and how do we be successful and make the most of our opportunities, we have to be intellectually curious enough to expose ourselves to different client situations, to programs that give us the tools, knowledge and the know-how to make the most of those opportunities and grow our advice capability towards 2050.
Wow, we're already projecting towards 2050.
Well, 1990s in the rear view mirror.
I like that, yeah. So I really hope that this course, can continue to blossom and go to reach greater heights, so that more and more financial practitioners in Singapore can benefit from this. And in return, we can also educate our clients better in all aspects of the financial planning framework.
Yeah, if I could offer just a final word on that.
Sure.
Globally, there is the rising tide of professional standards. And industry-led reform, industry-led initiatives are always better. And what we're responding to is a shift in consumer demand. And so as practitioners, how do we embrace that challenge? And I think if we keep coming back to some of the themes that we've explored today, client centricity, being really clear on what we're best at, creating value. These are all concepts which will put us in the best possible position to make the most of our opportunities. And so my encouragement to all advisors is just be clear on what success looks like for you and find the peers, find the programs, find the roadmap that helps you achieve your business vision.
Well said. I think we have the keyword is always to focus on the client and to put their interest above ours at all time. And more importantly, is also to invest in ourselves in terms of learning. And the best part is to see the elevation of the whole industry into a more professional and the best practices that we can have for our clients. So we hope that you have enjoyed the session, and please feel free to share, like, and also join our IFPAS Facebook. Thank you.